Thank you, Chef. I want to start by thanking Melissa for inviting me to speak today. We had a brief Zoom call a couple months ago, and I was just pleased that you were able to invite me and give me this opportunity. I also want to thank everyone. Who's here tonight for taking time away from your family, business, work, kids, whatever it may be. And my hope is that with today's talk, I'm able to share some perspectives and share some wisdom for you that's going to help you create the lifestyle that you desire and that you deserve, as well as inspire you to take massive action leaving here today. So does that sound like a plan? Sounds good. Okay, so before we jump in, if we can go to the next slide as well, we need to get a time machine. So we've got our time machine here, right? State of the art. It's like a Elon Musk 2035 model. And we're going to go back and look at some critical points throughout my life that helped me develop this framework. So first place we're going is back to the summer of the year 2000. And I was 8 years old. And what was otherwise, survived Y2K, what was otherwise a normal summer day, my dad asked my sister and I if we wanted to go fishing. And this was interesting because my dad never went fishing. I've never heard him talk about fishing. To this day, I still don't think he's ever been fishing since that day. And as we were fishing, he dropped the news to Mel and I that him and my mom were getting separated, that they'd be getting divorced. Okay. So in that time, at 8 years old, I learned quickly when we got home that an easy way to cope with the stress and the pain of that reality was to eat as much as possible. And that kicked off a 12-year daily habit of binge eating literally every single night. And that became my primary stress coping mechanism. So we're gonna get back in our time machine. We're gonna go forward 5 more years, and we're gonna go to, oh no, you're good there. We're gonna go to summer 2005, and we had my pre-sports physical before football season, and they discovered a few health issues that I was experiencing. So at 13 years old, I was over 200 pounds. My blood pressure was 160 over 100, and the doctor talked a little bit about exercise, booked a time to meet with a nutritionist, and also prescribed me to lisinopril, which is an ACE inhibitor to help with blood pressure. So not saying that's good, bad, or right or wrong, but it was just the strategy that we went with. So we're gonna get back in our time machine. We're gonna go forward 3 more years to December 2008. And I got off of my shift working at Cub Foods, pushing carts in. So hopefully if you leave here today, when you grab a cart at Cub Foods, you think of me. And I get home from my shift, and up to that point, the last couple of weeks before that, my knee was like clicking with every step. It felt like something was catching. Didn't necessarily hurt, it was uncomfortable, but it wasn't pain by any means. But I got out of my car, my knee buckled. I believe what happened in the moment was I tore the meniscus, but I'm not really sure. I collapsed on the ground. My mom heard me in the driveway. Next day we went in, got an x-ray. It came back negative, but I had a belief, and remember belief for later, I had a belief in my mind that there was something wrong with me and something that needed to be fixed, and that there was something going on that was outside of my control. So when I got an MRI, figured out I was diagnosed with a bone disease that I won't get into, but the prognosis and the care treatment was to get this massive invasive surgery where they drilled into my femur and put a bone graft into my left femur with the hopes that it would heal in. So again, this is at 16 years old. Okay, so we're gonna fast forward again. We're gonna go forward about 3 more years to January 2012. So at this point, I'm in college at St. Cloud State. I was home for winter break, playing hockey at my friend's house, and I fell on my left knee where I'd had the bone graft put in. Mind you, the doctors told me never to do contact sports again for the rest of my life. And that bone graft actually cracked out, which is a pain that I cannot explain to you in words. It did not feel good. And we went in the next day, x-ray, there's a bone graft literally floating in my knee. The day after that, an emergency arthroscopic surgery to pull that bone graft out. And then 2 months after that, the day after my 20th birthday, March 25th, 2012, I went in for my second invasive surgery where they put another bone graft into my femur. And that's what brings us to our final stop on our journey. So we're gonna go forward 2 more months to the day when everything changed. It's Wednesday, May 16th, 2012. So I'm 20 years old, and I go to the doctor, coming off crutches, excited, and we go back, and I step on the scale, and I was 375 pounds, 375. My blood pressure at that point was, again, 160 over 100 with a double dose now of lisinopril daily. I dropped out of college. I had little hope for my future, and there was honestly moments where I wondered if it was worth it to even keep going with life. So not to get too heavy, and to set the scene here, I need to share all of that because on that day, I was able to make changes that helped me become the man that I am today. So we're going to go through our framework. If we go to the next slide, we have a beautiful triangle. We're going to call this a triad of change, okay? And we're going to start at the top. So point one here is radical responsibility. So on that day, Wednesday, May 16, 2012, I had to make a decision and understand that I was in that situation because of what I had done for my life. There was nothing else to blame besides the way that I had lived to that moment, and I needed to take responsibility for it. Okay, it wasn't the processed food companies, it wasn't childhood trauma, it wasn't injury, it wasn't surgery, none of that. All of that happened because of the decisions that I had made. Okay, and going off of that, a quote from William Henley from the poem Invictus, he says, "I am the master of my fate, I am the captain of my soul." And it was something that I needed to fully embody to be able to get my health back and to turn my life around to become a healthy individual. And when we think about this framework, radical responsibility, taking responsibility for everything that happens in our life, it shows up similar in business, right? There's times in business where we want to blame external factors for our current reality. You know, we make excuses. We say things like the economy's not good. The marketing copy, it's just not sitting right with potential prospects. No one's clicking on my advertising links or my landing pages. My team isn't working as hard as I am. You know, my partners in this business aren't pulling their own weight. And all of these, again, are excuses that externalize our reality, and we're giving our power away. And another saying, when it comes to excuses, I'm going to paraphrase this one to keep it PG, but excuses are like a-holes. Everyone has one, and they all stink. Right? And the problem with excuses is twofold, okay? The first piece of excuses that make them problematic is that when you use excuses, you nullify your gifts and you prevent yourself from fully giving your gifts to the world. And when you're not able to share your gifts with the world, everyone else suffers, including yourself. And the second piece of excuses that I would argue is even worse is that it forces us to live in a disempowered way, and it guarantees, okay, living through excuses and externalizing our current reality guarantees that our future reality will either be the same or worse than where we're at right now. Okay, so that's what radical responsibility is all about. Letting go of excuses and being empowered in what you're doing for yourself and your business. So, our next point here is funny, typo there. Dedicated discipline, okay? So this does not say radical responsibility. That says dedicated discipline, so that's my bad. Yeah, so with dedicated discipline, again, it's understanding that action is what's going to take us to new realities. So again, for me, when I was in that doctor's office, when I got home, all I knew was I had to start doing something, okay? So I'm 375 pounds and I figure, okay, I need to start exercising. Well, I just had this massive bone graft transplant surgery and I'm not supposed to run. I'll start riding my bike. So I started riding my bike every day, whether it was snowing, raining, sunshine, whatever. Nutrition-wise, I was heavily addicted to fast food, and I realized that I needed to give that up, and maybe I wasn't making the best nutrition choices, but at least that trigger went away. My relationship with alcohol, so at that time I was also at St. Cloud State University, which if you know the reputation of St. Cloud State, a little bit of a party school. So I understood that maybe instead of drinking 6 days a week, I should take it down to like 2, maybe 3. And on top of that, I also realized that St. Cloud State, as much as I had great friends, I enjoyed my time there, it was not suitable to what I needed for growth, so I was actually transferred to Winona and got out of that environment. Okay, so when it comes to this dedicated discipline, it's important to take action, and the parallel here is that with business, there's a lot of different ways that we take action, but sometimes we want to rush things, or sometimes we feel like we don't see things through to the end, right? So, for example, we'll spend time maybe creating an email marketing campaign and we send it out and we get one person that signs up, even though we spend 20 hours on it. Maybe when it comes to this action, it's, you know, we created social posts and they're not getting any engagement. We have a sale, we write a new sales script, we try it out for a couple weeks and people aren't converting on it, so we're really quick to judge ourselves. And ultimately, when it comes to this act of dedicated discipline, it's understanding that the work is going to work on us rather than us just working on the work, right? Every single time we're taking repetitions and taking action on creating things that we know are eventually going to help other people, we are building alongside that. So with dedicated discipline, it's understanding that we must be able to take that action. And I'm going to backtrack because I'm remembering in my head. With that, it's also understanding when we have a business, we need to act as if we are professionals, okay? So the idea of an amateur versus professional, again, paraphrasing this one, but a quote that's been stated is that amateurs work when they feel like it, professionals work regardless, okay? And understanding this from a business context, if you have systems in place to be able to have dedicated discipline, to take action daily, weekly, monthly, whether you feel like it or not, that's gonna help you build momentum, which is one of the most powerful forces in the universe that's gonna help you get to new realities and create the lifestyle and business of your dreams. So with that too, and understanding systems, one more quote from Atomic Habits. Everyone's probably read this book. I feel like it's the most read book in the world right now, is that we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. So when it comes to dedicated discipline, it's taking action regardless of how we feel and having systems to be able to continuously take action over time. And then our third point here is the perspective pivot. So back to that day, Wednesday, 5 minutes? Thank you. I thought you had a question. Back to that day, Wednesday, May 16th, 2012. Although I was lacking hope and it was a tough situation to be in, I did have something that came to me that I never would have guessed, which was belief. So although I didn't have hope, hope is a desire for some sort of outcome to occur, whereas belief is an internal knowing that it can happen. Although I lacked hope, I was able to find belief in that moment. Okay, and I knew the road was going to have twists, it was going to have turns, there was going to be ups, there was going to be downs, there was going to be wins, failures, challenges, successes, all of the like. But having belief in myself is what ultimately allowed me to be able to get out of that position and to be able to refine my life. And ultimately, again, become who I am today. So with the perspective pivot, there's 3 points, and I went a little bit out of order in my talk, but we're going to circle back to one. So the first point with perspective pivot is, again, understanding that the work works on us more so than we work on the work, okay? It's understanding that every time we are committing to putting in focused action towards our desired state or towards a desired new reality, whether we get there or not is not as important as simply putting in the work, because ultimately what's going to happen is we're going to build our skills, we're going to build our confidence to be able to keep doing the work over time. Point number 2, and this one has become a mantra for me in my life, is if you do not quit, you cannot fail. Okay, so oftentimes in business, like I mentioned, we try things, we try different marketing campaigns. Maybe a client quits our program or quits our service from us. Maybe we launch a new product and no one buys it. The only way that you truly fail at anything in life is if you quit. And for example, there's a couple examples you may have heard. One is J.K. Rowling, right? So if anyone's heard this, J.K. Rowling was turned down by 12 publishers before someone took her up on the first Harry Potter book. Another one is Michael Jordan, right? So he was cut from his high school basketball team as a sophomore. Michael Jordan cut from a basketball team. And the third one that I love is Colonel Sanders. So mind you, he's in his 60s at this time, and he was denied 1,009 times before someone took him up on a signature chicken recipe. So the 1,010th one, he got a yes, and obviously KFC became what it is today. And all of these people, as well as you, as well as myself, are exemplifying that as long as you do not quit, you cannot fail. So we must continue going forth towards what it is that we desire to create for our lifestyle. And then number 3, and this is, I think, the most important piece of what I want to share today, coming back to what I mentioned at the start of this, is belief. So having belief is something that is going to consciously and subconsciously reprogram your brain to make success inevitable. Okay? And belief is also a conduit to you in understanding your own internal greatness. Okay, so if there's one thing I can leave you with today, it's the understanding that you have greatness inside of you. This framework is going to allow that greatness to flow through you. The world needs your greatness now more than ever, and your greatness needs to be seen. And that's my talk.